Fernando, take one, solve 6.
My name is Fernando Bermudez. I served over 18 years in prison for a crime I did not commit. There had been an altercation at a Greenwich Village nightclub. I'm not even at that club, nor in the area, actually 6 miles north, with my friends celebrating my enrollment in college. 2 days later after this incident, I'm arrested. A gun is placed to my temple, and plainclothes detectives whisk me away in a police car. And hours later, after an exhausting interrogation in which they don't even tell me what I'm being arrested for, I'm charged with murder. I was horrified because I had no idea why I was being arrested. My mother was screaming from our second-floor story apartment. There's a gun to my head, and I'm forcibly placed into a police car, and I voluntarily go with them because I believe that a big mistake has happened. I felt I had nothing to hide, so I sat down in a lineup, and they said, "Sit down." I would later come to realize that the reason that they told me to sit down was because the perpetrator was described as 5'10", 165 pounds. On my behalf, I'm standing 6'2", weighing about 215 or 20 pounds. So I sit down, and I'm next to a bunch of police officers who are in plain clothes, but I realize are police officers based on the necklaces that they wear with badges underneath, which can still be seen. Then when I'm told that I'm selected as a perpetrator, a 17-year-old young lady had selected my picture as being someone familiar from the scene. And after she picked out my picture, illegally, she shared my picture with other teenage witnesses, which contaminated the procedure. I believed in the American criminal justice system. All my life, I believed that if you're charged with a crime or if anything bad happens, just tell the truth and it's going to be resolved. So I told that at the precinct and I wasn't believed. My witnesses, my alibi witnesses, said the same and we weren't believed. But I believed that the justice system would come through for me. I'm hopeful that the truth will prevail. So I go to trial. And it doesn't matter that there's no physical or forensic evidence linking me to this crime. It doesn't matter that the physical description doesn't match. It doesn't matter that even 3 friends of the deceased who were sitting and standing right next to him when he was shot told the police and prosecutor that I'm not the one who shot their best friend. I'm just disillusioned at this point. The years are ticking by, and I'm wondering, why am I not getting justice? I start educating myself, despite the aggravation, despite the desperation, and even thoughts of suicide that I battle in prison. I start writing. I continue writing. I don't give up. And I continue writing to the extent where I finally attract a new legion of attorneys. So by 2007, I assemble what's essentially a dream team of attorneys, and I also get involved with New York's Innocence Project, and they start working with me as well. And together, we compile the evidence, namely that in federal court, there had been a federal judge who said that my identification procedures were illegal and should not have happened. Using that evidence as a foundation, in addition to the accumulated evidence, we enter state court again after losing 10 appeals. I needed a positive distraction. So much negativity exists in prison. There's drug use, there's gang memberships available, there's violence all the time. There's so much self-destruction, in other words. I had to find a way to construct my life. And I did it through education. I did it by being able to communicate and learning as much as I could and reading as many books as I could. And so I began college programs as well. And I availed myself of a program which allowed me to obtain an associate's degree with a concentration in business. I started teaching as many people as I could. Not only classes in terms of if people didn't speak English, I taught them, but also Latin American history classes, and that became basically my vocation in prison. I'm not able to have affection. I'm not able to have intimacy. I'm not able to feel like a human being, because after every visit when I do see my family and my wife, I'm forced to strip naked and expose my body to a correctional officer who's seeking to find contraband on me.
It was a huge burden. I can't even describe it. It just seemed like he just jumped out of the television and just jumped into my heart and just ripped it. I mean, I was just emotional, and I just felt sick. And it got worse. I didn't get any relief from it until I was able to get his address and write him. And then I had some relief, butterflies, you know, I hope he writes back. If not, then I know he's at home safe. He wrote back. He had got a lot of letters, but he chose mine.
I said, wow, here it is in the darkness. I'm having someone tell me about exactly what I want to hear. And it helped me. It helped me because in building a relationship at that point, I had been hesitant to drag anybody into this. But she persisted to the extent that she said, I'm here for you as a friend, and I'm here to tell you about God. And I willingly took this invitation as something to help me with my life. In prison, after a while, you go through the motions and everything like that in prayer, and you don't see anything happening. I gave up. I basically gave up. But there was something inside me that still needed to have that spiritual healing and recognition to take me further every single day until I won. And even as it wavered, she brought it back and stabilized it.
I decided I was gonna come here. So I snuck behind my parents' back. And I was very scared because I don't like to fly. And I made it here. And so he had his family waiting for me, of course. And in fact, the way my hair is today is the first time it's been like that since the day that we met. I asked him this morning, I said, "Do you realize my hair is the same?" And he's like, "Yeah." It was just amazing. His family, when I got there, they were very happy people, but very emotional. You can tell that this thing had really broken them down. And I was overwhelmed with just the culture. And then walking to see him, it was just because I really never really paid much attention to his looks or anything else. So to see him was like, okay, I didn't realize you had this, that, or whatever, but it was just an overwhelming shock, and I was very excited and happy. And I felt like my burden had finally lifted, like I was where I was meant to be, and even though it was prison, it just felt like at home. Well, it was lonely. We did have the people he knew, to come down to be his best men, but it was lonely because I had never dreamed that I would get married that way. But again, that was the most happiest day of my life, even though we didn't have our families there to celebrate. It was just magical, and it seemed like from that day on, we knew what we needed to do. We were on the right path. I never felt so loved at that moment and so wanted, but I don't know. It's just like a little girl's dream come true, but it's inside a wedding. It was very dry. It was very, other couples was there. We were standing there, and the whole time he was taking my ring and just rolling it around on my finger, rocking back and forth. And you could tell he was nervous.
It's also contrasted against the realities that you're facing at the moment. There's no rice being thrown at the wedding. There's no dance. There's no cutting of a cake. There is no reception where you can invite your family. So it's the reality of that, yet taking away with you, stealing the moment with knowing that you at least have a partner with, that you can fight with against this adversity, and knowing that the love is what's going to push you through. It's a very unusual circumstance. It was one that I discussed it with my wife about, and we said, you know what? So much has been taken away from us. Why should we let them take away more? Let's have kids. Just knowing that I could at times even help my wife while incarcerated, even when things looked bleak, was helpful. I started a clothing business in prison, which I operated for 9 years. I started buying clothing wholesale, and I retailed it inside prison, changing it for different items, whether it was cigarettes, stamps, toothpaste, detergent, deodorant, all of that, sending it in lump sum home so she could exchange it in bodegas and get cash for it to help pay the rent. So those were moments which were picking my life up and our lives up. But most importantly, it allowed us to help our children, to have holidays, at least a semblance of a holiday when I wasn't available, and also to start getting a team to help me out.
I told him how he was going to come home, but he didn't believe me. And I told him when he was going to come home, and he didn't believe that either. It seemed like, okay, I had to believe myself that this really did happen. It was just amazing. It was shock. And even now, today, he's been out for 3.5 years. I'm still amazed. I'm still shocked, and that we can live again and just be free, and I don't have to sit in the car crying when other couples walk by me.
For me, coming out of prison was like I stopped breathing inside a plastic bag. That day, when the judge declared me actually innocent, which made New York State legal history because my case was non-DNA, and to receive such a ruling meant so much to me. Right before I had an opportunity to go before this new judge, I was offered a plea bargain, which in essence said, if you plead guilty to a lesser crime, you can be freed. And I told my wife, we can't do this. I'm not gonna plead guilty to anything. I'm gonna fight this, even if it means I die in prison. I don't care. And it was the best decision that we made because I went there, come what may, and we won. Thank you.
I cannot look at his face. He makes me...
We'll separate you.
One request. Should I with me?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Fernando Bermudez. Did I say how old I am?
Yeah.
I am 11 years old.
What?
What's your name?
Oh, Fernando, and I'm 7 then.
All right.
And I'm 2nd grade.
It was amazing. I can't find words to explain it. I remember jumping from the steps and hugging him.
And I felt the weight of her, my son, and our eldest daughter on top of me as if I were Atlas without the strength.
And I gave him candy.
On my 8th birthday on the 7th, I wished for my dad to come home as a birthday wish, and I guess it came true a few weeks later. I remember my friends asking, I never seen your dad, what does he do? And I had to lie to them and say that he's away on business or something like that. And it was just really hard not having a father there. Yeah.
And what do I do now with the school and you?
He goes on all the field trips, and all the kids in my class just embrace him. They love him. They can't wait for the next field trip so he can come.
Is it because I'm a good dancer?
Well, you have cool accessories.
Love was the intervening factor in this case because it began with my family, namely my parents and my wife, who began fighting for me, and it continued in earnest with attorneys who started working pro bono for me on my behalf without pay, and all of that made a difference. And it was the love for myself as well, knowing that I was an innocent man in prison and that I had to die for the truth.
I want to be a lawyer.
And why?
Just to help the people who are in need to, if they didn't even do anything, I could help them.